La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football.
Yeah, listen, we fucked up.
Yeah, so that was it. I think that's in a nutshell, especially the Empoli match for me. Really missed opportunity, and I don't know, Fabry, how do you think about these last couple of matches?
I absolutely agree with you. This little clip here sums up essentially. We can put the Lazio match, the Coppa Italia match on the side and talk about it right after that, but I wanted to focus it on the Empoli. So benvenuti to La Lanterna podcast, obviously, but essentially... I don't know. What happened with this match?
It's just, I don't know what else to say, I guess. Like, this was an opportunity for us. We had the early chance. We had the early goal. And, as we see time and time again, we kind of end up undoing ourselves. And it ultimately felt like fairly lackluster, I have to say. I think like the draw isn't something that necessarily flatters Empoli. I think it was relatively, we had more shots, sure, but at the end, it really seemed like we could have gotten more out of the match, and we left with a point instead of 3 against the team that we're competing directly against to stay up in Serie A. So it's a weird one because, you have that goal, you feel like once again we have just this amazing wonder goal from Malinowski. So if there's a redeeming thing, I think we're starting to see more of that from him. I think he's becoming more and more a really integral player for us, and especially from a goal scoring opportunity. But it's just 6s and 7s. We get outdone way too easily at the back towards the end of the match. Some miscommunication. I think one comment that was really active in the group chats that I'm in, I'm sure in the group chats that you're in too, is we keep fucking up after we substitute players. We substitute players and almost immediately there's a goal. This is the second game consecutively, at least if you're looking at the Empoli match, where something like that had happened. And that's one of the most disappointing things, I think.
Let's take a step back. Essentially, I wanted to talk about the stadium. So we were over 30,000. So the good thing is, like, since start of the season, we have never dipped below 30,000, which is something remarkable and exceptional. This time around, we did not have many. Actually, not many. We did not have any flag, any banners or so on because they were protesting something internally. We can agree or not agree with the ultra, but essentially it was an ultra factor where they were complaining about it's something called DASPO, which is a police order to stop people from going to the stadium if they have done something bad. So, it's a little bit of a gray area. I understand where they're coming from. At the same time, I understand also where the authorities are coming from. So it's something that I'd rather not really go too much deep into because ultimately it's something more regarding them. So the crowd was there. It was very English style, if you think about it, with the fact of no flags and so on. So it felt almost like watching, I don't know, an Arsenal or some sort of like a match from the EPL, right?
Wait, so I might have missed the memo. Is there a reason for that?
Yes. So, okay, I'll go describe a little bit of it. Essentially, there were a certain amount of fans, ultras, that were banned to go to the stadium and watch any type of sports event based on facts happened on away games. Whatever that might be, I'm not too sure. So it could be, I don't know, violence or disruptive or destruction of public property or something like that. So their point was, why doing it so many months after while other fans and you're not doing anything about it? It was a protest against the authorities to say you cannot destroy us, we'll still be here. I don't know. I'm not a sympathizer with these type of things, but I understand them. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so it's like a self-imposed we're going to be a little bit less ourselves than normal type of thing.
Yes, they said we're going to still be there, supportive for the team. We're going to chant like crazy. And actually, we're going to have to chant twice the amount because of the lack of the visual aspect. They did have still flares, but no.
There were still pyros. I was going to say, there were definitely still pyros at the end of the match. Wasn't it like orange at some point?
At the beginning too, yeah. It's quite common. I don't know why the orange. I guess it's the cheapest. I don't know, but sometimes you get the red and blue one, but most of them are these orange ones. I don't know why, but Anyways, so the match starts. I think that the first half was quite under control. I would think that we had several occasions, mind you. I'm thinking, I mean, let's don't underestimate Empoli. Having said that, they did trouble some bigger teams as well. Not too many as
that's fair.
Sassuolo has done, but we know Andreazzoli, he did crap with us, but he has done wonders with Empoli throughout the years of tenure that he was there, saving Empoli is doing quite well anyways. This year, not too much. Obviously, there was one of the first chances was actually from Empoli with Maldini's son, which we were kind of lucky that it just did not hit the center or the target or whatnot. Right. Having said that, Leali, still respect him. Didn't think it was a great match from his side, but nevertheless, he still showed good things. Then a couple of occasions where the first one I can think of is Retegui around the 20-minute mark.
Messias found some space in between the lines. This is where he's at his most dangerous. Goes looking for Matteo Retegui. Diving header. The front two combining. Retegui unable to apply the finishing touch.
Finally, I can say that he's starting to be back. This was the first match after 2 months long that he was away for it due to injury. So we were also very high expectations, I guess, in a way, but also worried that did they do it too fast, not too fast, maybe not fast enough because we were missing him very much. But it was good to see him. And in fact, the attack was quite different compared to our Puskás or versus Retegui. Now, one mark there I wanted to say, if it was Puskás to try that header going away from the goal, we would have told him off. But because it's Retegui, we're protecting him, saying, well, you see, we have chances. This is a weird one.
I mean, it is what it is. When you score goals, you get the benefit of the doubt.
And then we have around, I can't remember now, what that was around the 30, half an hour mark. We have a cross in from Vasquez. We'll talk about also the lineup shortly after. I forgot about that. Yeah. But we have a cross in the box from Vasquez that gets Messias, catches Messias, and Messias kicks it, and it goes once again to the woodwork.
Vasquez with the delivery, and then Messias on the half volley. Desperately unlucky. The 9th time this season, Genoa have been denied by the frame of the goal.
This is the 8th time in the season, 5th match in a row. We're the second most cross woodwork in Serie A after Frosinone. They have 10. And then essentially, I can think of maybe another chance, but far outside of the box from, I can't remember even who it was, from Empoli. But then you have this beautiful ball that was given to from the left over to Badel, kicks it, gets deflected, comes back to Badel once again, who passes it off to Malinowski, which was just outside the half moon, and another beautiful hurler.
Oh, yeah.
Junior Messias checks inside, still Junior Messias offloads. Bade, first time effort from him. Malinowski, can he get a shot away? He certainly can! And he scores in back-to-back Serie A matches. The long-range specialist strikes again. It's now 17 goals from distance since his Serie A bow back in 2019.
Just wonderful, a wonder goal. I mean, that's all you can say. Just an absolutely perfectly struck. And, it's not like necessarily you can say we come to expect it from him, but we know that he has the skill, and it's just fantastic every time it goes in, and it's always going to be the type of goal that gets you off your seat. It's amazing.
And he consolidated himself to be the player with the most goals in Serie A. We talked about it already after Messi, and he's just confirming to be. We're going to be getting used to this. It's 2 games in a row now. Now I'm hoping it's going to be every match, but we can't really hope for too much. And then the match sort of, like this was at the 37th minute, so towards the end of the first half. It was contained after that. Nothing really much happened, and then there was a first half. Second half, change again. We started with the same lineup. After around the 60th minute, Messias calls for 66 to be precise. Messias calls to be subbed because, he doesn't have the minutes in his legs yet. So Kutlu comes in for him. And what happens is we get that goal. To your point earlier on, once again, second half with the changes. And what happened? Why did we get that goal in your opinion?
Well, there were different people that have been signaled out as being at fault. I think there's clearly a communication problem that takes place, and we don't. It's like a two-part thing because we didn't quite press the ball. I think it happened on the right side of the pitch, if I'm not mistaken. It was kind of like this long ball that was bounced forward, and we had a little bit of a problem with our defense rotating over and tracking back with the run all at the same time. So I don't love blaming it on anyone. I know that because I think there are several people that were at fault. I do think that a couple of our substitutes were at play with this. I know there was a question about Martinez and his positioning, and from my perspective, I don't think that has anything to do with it, really. I think, when you look at where he is and just in general, giving the very quick, kind of keeper perspective, I suppose, obviously you're only coming out and claiming a cross if you're sure you're going to get it. Where he was positioned and how he was kind of set up before the cross came in. He was closer to the line because he was trying to protect shots coming near post. And so, the farther off you are from the line, the easier it is to score near post. And so, yes, if he was farther off the line, you could have claimed that it would have been a goal, but also they could have tried, and it would have been a really embarrassing one had he let it in that way. So I think really at the end of the day, our defense completely gets undone. And when you have the keeper trying to scramble across the goal line and then get set and then react to go the opposite direction, almost always that's going to be a goal because you just don't have enough time to have your power and momentum to react to a shot with that pace.
Essentially, there were three different actions that happened to the build up of that goal, and a lot of mistakes were done. So there's no specific player. I mean, I can mention a few just because they were part of the error itself. So Kutlu, you can say Vogliacco, you can say De Winter, and so on. We use a zone type of defense, and I think that everything happened maybe too fast right after the change. I don't know. Something happened. To your point, I think it was miscommunication somehow, or loss of the ranks, or the positioning and so on, and that's what happened.
Yeah, it's just frustrating. I mean, it's again I don't know what to say. I know some people are saying, well, this is what happens when you have no Mattia Bani.
Well, definitely we have gotten that hit. Since Bani is out, our defense is having issues, let's say. Yeah. And I remember even in Serie B last year, when we had him out for a couple of matches, we were scrambling because he seems to be like our core, our heart, which is dangerous in a way. It's important because you need a player like him, but it's also dangerous because when he is out, because remember, Bani, when he first came, we were afraid of this issue where he went, I think before that he was at Bologna, and he had a lot of injuries in a sense, like he was out quite often. And the point is, if you don't have a valid asset at the back, control and whatnot, we're trying to have a Vogliacco back in his form that we had from last year. I have an issue there with respect to the lineup. I guess let's quickly jump a little bit back and forth, and I apologize for that, but let's quickly jump to the lineup to understand better what I'm trying to get at. So obviously we have Martinez in goal. From right to left, we have Vogliacco, De Winter, Draghi. So it's a 3-5-2 or 3-5-1-1. I think it's more of a 3-5-2. We'll see why after. But why Vogliacco on the right and De Winter in the middle?
Yeah, I mean,
and Draghi at the left.
I think you can ask that question within the back three. I think that's relatively fair. I don't know. I know that some were looking at Vogliacco within this last goal and potentially him being one of the guys that was contributing to be at fault. I didn't think Vogliacco had that bad of a match. Maybe I'm the only person that thinks that, but I do think you can maybe raise a claim. Like, obviously, we've seen De Winter, even though he's maybe more of a natural center back, we've seen him play right back before. So having him as the rightmost center back is something that would sort of naturally make sense. Dragoshin, I think, has typically played more so as the left-haired center back if we're playing with the back four. So having him on the left side versus having him in the middle, you can maybe make some comments about that a little bit. But I think, I don't know exactly the particular reason by this. Maybe like one left-footed, that type of a thing could be something to do with it. I'm not sure.
Also because, and I'll get now to the midfield. Actually, let me just outline it as well, because I think it kind of, some of the issues that I found, especially in the second half, besides the subs, which absolutely are part of that, but the five in the middle, we have Sabelli to the right, not the left, Malinowski, Badel, Frendrup, and Vasquez. So this is where I personally find a little bit of an issue, where Vasquez did not shine there on the left. While maybe it was because he had a little bit of some of the other side, the opponent side, that obviously kind of overshadowed him or whatnot, but that's not his natural position. He's not, even though we have seen him time to time in the box, but that was coming from the back. So I don't see him as a quote-unquote winger in a 3-5-2.
Would you rather like Aaron Martin in that same place?
Either himself, yes, either Martin or Haps. I would have preferred. Because
right.
I think
if you have Haps, then you have probably Sabelli moves back to the left.
Right.
It's fair. It does seem a little bit odd. I mean, to your point, we've seen Vasquez make, in some matches, he's kind of had these like bombing runs forward. And remember, there's one match where he was like our number 10, but it's not his natural position for sure. And I think, like, to go back to sort of where we were with the back three and everything, I think there is another thing too. Like, do you have Johan Vasquez as one of the back three as well? Is an option, right? And we were talking about, I don't know if this has anything to do with anything, but Dragoshin, De Winter, and Voyako all are right-footed players. It maybe makes a slightly less importance, I don't know, with the back three, but we know how valuable it is to have a center back or to have someone playing in the back with a strong left foot. And so I wonder, maybe like if Dragoshin's in the middle and Vasquez is on the left, do we see something different? It's a fair question for sure.
It's only a question. Obviously, we have this saying in Italian, col senno del poi, which means obviously after the fact, it's easy to judge things and so on. Even in the press conference, Gilardino himself did say at that moment when I decided to change, and that will be part of my point after, is on the 73rd minute, he takes out Vasquez for Haps, he takes out Malinowski for Fini, and then 10 minutes after, Sabelli for Puskás to try to bring that pressure up front. Sorry, just to wrap the last of the starting 11, we had Messias and Retegui. So it was beautiful to see the both of them. But personally, this happened more in the first half because we had Messias that came out after the 1 hour mark. But I didn't see that major pressure from our forwards, or maybe it wasn't the balls that got to them. So perhaps it was the back that was not, and we'll see that a little bit better with the Lazio match. But essentially, I did not see a lot of constructive build-up towards our forwards.
Yeah, it wasn't our best match. There's no question. I thought Messias looked fairly lively. Retegui, to your point, coming back from injury, maybe it wasn't quite as sharp, but he still had some moments where you think, okay, maybe we're going to see something from him. So yeah, I think the 37th minute, we end up giving up a goal literally a minute after making, was it 3 substitutes or 2 substitutes? I think we made. It just sucks. I don't know. There's not much else to say about it.
I guess
we only made 1 substitute before that goal. But still.
I don't like to do this, but I think that it was not well planned, I suppose, for once, from Gilardino. I mean, obviously, he read it in a way, and it didn't go that way. So it could have been kudos to Andreazzoli or faulty to Gilardino, or a mixture of the two. Nevertheless, second half after their goal, there weren't many occasions. Yes, you are right that we had a lot more chances, especially towards the end, because our, traction was way more up front, especially when you take out Sabelli and you bring in Puskás, even though we know what Puskás really can do. But having said that, it just, I don't know, it felt a little bit insipid without much flavor.
That's 100% right.
And essentially, that's why I feel like it was badly planned in a sense. And ultimately, we lost the 2 points, and Empoli didn't really steal anything.
Well, yeah. I mean, they didn't really steal anything in the sense that, like, I'm not sure we deserved the 3, but we definitely lost 2 really important points. And when you look at the table coming out of the match, you know, it's tricky. Like, good news, I suppose, we still who are sitting at 12th and 11th respectively. So, you know, you get a win against either of those sides. You have a chance to kind of get right back into that category. Our goal difference isn't great, but we're right in there with pretty much every team from 12 through 15 has the same -4, -3, -5, somewhere in there. But we're sitting at 14th position with 15 points. We're ahead of Sassuolo only on goal difference, with them being -5. And at the moment, we're about 5 points from the drop. So you're looking at Hellas Verona in 18th spot on 10. You know, again, there are worse places to be in the table. We could be at Cagliari right now and be sitting right squarely in the relegation zone. But it's hard to not look at this match and think we get another 2 points, and we're sitting firmly in 13th place on 17. We're a point behind Frosinone. We're a point behind Monza. We're 2 points behind Torino in 10. And we're, you know, only a win and a loss behind Lazio and Atalanta at 8th and 9th position. I think, like,
wait, am I looking at a different table here? I'm seeing we're sitting on the 14th spot together with Sassuolo. We're at 4 points from Torino. And
I think that's where we are through 14 match days.
Yes, 14 match day. And the good thing is the second side of the table. So what in the time we refer to as the right side of the table, because they always divide it in two, like the 10 left and the 10 right. So the 10 right, so the 11th to the 20th, everyone has done either tied or lost. So we gained 1 point to Monza and Frosinone and Sassuolo and Cagliari and Salernitana, but everyone else...
3 points, you know, you get it in the middle of the table, which at the end of the day, you know, we're still on course, I think, for our objective for the season. But you can't take matches for this for granted. And I think our form could be a lot worse. We've won 2 of our last 5. We do have Monza as our next match in Serie A. So with that respect, like, we have a chance to at least be level with them on points, albeit with an inferior goal differential, and hopefully get some space between...
well, you don't know if it's inferior. We could win 5-0.
Well, sure. Yeah, we can all. There's always a possibility, but you never know. I mean, when you look at the teams kind of in and around where we are, Torino and Frosinone sitting at 10th and 12th respectively are playing each other. We're playing 11th place Monza. You have Lecce and Empoli. So Lecce is sitting in 13th spot right now. Empoli currently in 17th. You think that would favor Lecce, especially with some of the matches they've had this year. Sassuolo, who are directly level with us, only behind us because of goal differential, have Cagliari, who are not looking, you know, the absolute best, and are 19th in the table. And then you have Udinese at 16 playing Inter.
That's a good point that you're bringing up. Like, if you look at these ones that are close to us, except for Monza, which apparently I didn't really see the match other than just some highlights. The rumors have it that they actually deserve to win. And obviously Juventus, for who they are, whether they are strong, whether they do not have other competitions at hand compared to the top 6 type of teams up there. So they're a little bit, you know, healthier, or, you know, have more strength and so on. They managed to win against Monza just at the 94th minute, by the way. Then we have Cagliari that lost at Lazio, and we will talk about Lazio shortly, but it's not that this strong Lazio. Lecce tied with Bologna. Bologna, superstar team, by the way. Udinese it's still suffocating and having issues at back as well. Sassuolo, we still don't know what's happening with them, because sometimes they could come and kill us, or a team, not necessarily us, or just, like, you know, get spanked badly even at home against the weakest team.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of open options, and there's a lot of openness, I think, when you look from, at least from Monza all the way down to Udinese. I mean, you're talking about six points, obviously, which isn't a small number. But I think you look at these teams and you think, well, you know, you could see a lot of, like, even the matches we talked about Empoli. We drew with them. You know, they've not been getting their faces rubbed in the mud. You know, losing 2-1 to Frosinone, losing 4-3 to Sassuolo. You know, like they're in the running. in many of these matches, and I think many of these teams are. So in a way that bodes well, but in a way it also means we really need to be making the most out of this part of the calendar, like that we've got to get points.
There's two issues I have at hand right now. One is the lack of points gained away. So far we only had 4 points, 3 points with Lazio and 1 point at Udine. So against Udinese. Otherwise we always lost. And the run of form. So lately we had these teams that were quote unquote more that you could reach out to do something because they're on the paper, they're not as strong as the top part of the league. So if you look at the matches, except the Salernitana one, we had Cagliari where we lost, Verona we won, Frosinone we lost, Empoli we tied. So I don't know, a lot of people are talking about, I'm not saying that they should have been all wins, but the Cagliari match, the Frosinone match, and especially the Empoli match.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing numbers right out there, but maybe 3-4 points that could have been in our pocket and would have looked a lot different, right?
I think it's 100% right, the right way to look at it. Like this was a part of the calendar, and it's not disrespect to these teams. It's just when you consider how tough it is to get points off of the top six in Serie A, these are matches where you need to get more out of the match. And you think with Cagliari, we have what it takes. I think the Cagliari match was the first one where we were kind of without Retegui, and was that, were we missing Goodmanson too? I can't remember, but it was still a match. You need to try to get something. You get a point against Verona or 3 points against Verona. Frosinone, like, it's important we get something. We lose that match. And then Empoli, again, it's important we get something. And look, we got a point. But you look at this and, 4 points from those 4 matches, you really expect to get more. I think that's just the reality. You expect to get more out of that. Even if we manage, instead of losing to Cagliari, we draw. Instead of losing to Frosinone, we draw. That's 2 incredibly critical points that we don't have.
If we look at the math, our goal is like 40 points, essentially to have like some sort of like a comfortable season this year for consolidation of Serie A.
Yeah.
There's only 5 matches left now. So just to run them in front of us, the next one is at Monza, so away, then at home against Juventus 10 days from now. Then we have at Sassuolo, and we know how difficult that can be, not to mention Juventus, of course, right? But then we have the match at home against Inter, and last one is at Bologna. And, right here, I'm talking about not anymore this run of a few matches that we, on the paper, looked a little bit better.
Well, look, when you consider the target, it's 38 match weeks in Serie A, right? We are at 14 matches. We've earned 15 points.
So on the paper, we're trying to get to 20. If you think about the 40, right? So by the end of the first leg, we're trying to get to 40.
Yeah. But at present, so like that average is basically like a point a match, more or less, right? Because you have 38 matches, and you get to 40. So it's like, I think it comes out to like 1.1 points, which obviously you're not going to get.
Of course. We're trying to look for 5 points in the next 5 matches.
Yeah. And I think like we're still on course. It's just that we need to be making the most out of these opportunities. Monza is a big one.
You're right. We're still at course, not pretty per se, but when I hear disastrous type of approaches or comments to say Gilardino should be fired, he's unprepared, he's a Primavera coach, he's we need a whole revamp in January. Obviously, I'm hoping, this is another topic of conversation, but I'm hoping to see some reinforcements at January. First of all, there was another confirmation from the club to say that in January, for those fearful of the Preziosi era, that we are not going to lose any player or any major player. Sorry, I should say not any major player in the January transfer window. No Goodmanson, no Dragusin, no. Hopefully Puskas for someone else, those ones are welcome, but none of the big names or the important names anyways. So having said that, let's hang in there. The matches of Bologna brings us to January 5th. At that point, I'm hoping some deals have been happening behind doors and they come in sooner rather than later, because once again, this transfer window lasts a whole month and so on. And I'd rather see them earlier rather than at the end of January, because the end of January, that also means another 4 matches after that, right?
So just to recap or preview where we are, what we're looking at in that period of time. So we have Monza this coming Sunday. We have Juve that following Friday, Sassuolo, on the 22nd, Inter on the 29th, and then, as you mentioned, Bologna on January 6th. So
actually, they changed the Bologna. It's news from today. It's
Okay.
not going to be on January 6th. It's going to be on Friday, January 5th.
Okay, that's right. So I think like you look at these matches, it's Monza is kind of a must-win, Sassuolo kind of a must-win, and hopefully we get 3 points out of Bologna too. Although Bologna have been a good side this season,
Very good. Like, let's not underestimate them. That's why I was pointing out the next few matches to be difficult. We talked quickly several times about Sassuolo, but Bologna, they're sitting on the 7th spot,
Right.
easy on the 7th spot alone, and kind of like poking the Europe spots.
No, they're literally a point behind Fiorentina for the Conference League, and they're 2 behind Napoli for the Europa League. So they're absolutely in that conversation. They're 2 also behind. Roma is also on 24 in the Champions League. So they're in a place where they could be in any of those European quadrants next season right now.
Absolutely. Thiago Motta is doing an excellent job at Bologna, and kudos to him for what he's actually pulling through from there. But what I wanted to say was essentially, I had a conversation on Twitter with one of our fans, or not necessarily fans, but friends, let's call it like that. And his name is Frank, and he's at, just to quote him and shout out to him, he's at FitBaFocus FC on Twitter. And I'm having some quite good and interesting conversations with him. I'm just quoting some portions that he talked about. Genoa have shown they are a match in most games and shouldn't fear anyone. They have to improve offensively versus teams around the same level as them, and have to cut out the lapses in concentration at the back. Do that and they will pick up a fair share of points. If not, then another one that he mentioned as well is, I think they just aren't creating enough as an attacking outlet, relying on a moment of magic or bit of fortune. Fortunately, that's been enough so far, but when that doesn't happen, it seems like their ideas are limited at times. Work to be done, and got to believe in Gilardino to do it. And some conversations and back and forth with him and so on. And obviously it got me thinking, and also defensive a little bit, first saying, yes, you are right. That was more of the beginning where we were keeping a lot of luck to our side, i.e. the match against Lazio in the league and so on, where the chances, I think, and I respond to him saying the chances grew up a little bit more and more from the beginning of the season all the way throughout. But he has a point, and the issue is, and that's what we said about this match too. The issue is not enough opportunities, not enough chances, not enough shots on goal. Essentially, that's at the end. The issue is we don't have enough shots on goal. The more you do, and the more chances we have to score. So let's give you an example. If in the first half of Empoli, we managed to do a 3-0 because we had both Retegui and Messias up front, because we gave them all the balls and they shot so many times and we managed to score 3, and we got hit with 1 or 2 goals, it would have been a total different story, right?
Well, sure. I mean, yeah. But I think obviously, yes. If we score 10 goals, we'll be in a good place to be safe. I get it. I'm with that. But I think there's obviously much more systemic things. I don't think that Gilardino doesn't think that we need to score as many goals as possible in a match.
No.
That's what's going on. With our players, I think, in the way that our team we talked about this a lot in the earlier stages of the season too. We don't have a true number 10. I don't even think Malinovsky is that type of a player. We've talked literally in this pod about how Vasquez played at number 10 for us once, which is insane. There's not a construct around this team that allows for that type of distribution. And so a lot of how you've seen us strategically try to score, it's pretty much counterattacking and high pressing. We're trying to force opponents into making errors on their side of the pitch so that we can scupper it up. And then we just try to hoover the ball over to one of our wizards, which now is kind of a 3-headed monster once they're all healthy, of Malinovsky or Retegui, or now, Malinovsky, Retegui currently, and obviously Goodmanson when he comes back. And that's been a lot of, it's those things, or scoring on set pieces and in particular corners. Now, I think like our ability to, provide proper service to our forwards and connect play and have that there, it's tough, right? Because I think at the beginning of the season, we intentionally were not taking that possession, which naturally means we're going to probably have less opportunities to service the ball forward because we're playing this counterattacking style and we're trying to really press, and we're comfortable not having a whole lot of the ball. That's been a story for most of the season. But you have to think, like, we're not a side that I think has the luxury of being able to try to boss the game through the midfield. As much as we have so many like solid midfield players, we love Frederick, we love Strootman. Badel, I think, is still very important to how we want to play. But I mean, what are we expecting Gilardino to do with these guys?
He's definitely working his wonders and magic. As we mentioned, hopefully there are some more, the vice Retegui, the backup for Retegui or whatnot in January or something like that.
And to be fair, I'm not trying to criticize our squad and say we don't have good players. What I mean is like the connective 11 players that we have. We're not going to be playing. I mean, Badel does have the skill to play some ridiculously, beautiful through balls and stuff like that. But like, we're not going to be playing tiki-taka and dribbling around and passing around our defense. Like the best opportunities we're going to be able to get. I think Gilardino is still probably figuring out a bit how we can best use this with our squad. And I know he has ideas for it, but the positive things as a Genoa fan, because I do agree with the overall points. I do think that Gilardino will hopefully right the ship. I think we've been a little bit unlucky when it comes to our players being fit. When you consider like our transfer policy, and there's been tons of comments on this, we don't need to talk too much about it, but we obviously spend a huge amount of money on Retegui. We put a decent amount of our faith as well towards Junior Macias. Both of those players have hardly been on the pitch together this season, saving for a couple of matches. We're now at a place where we don't have Goodmanson on the pitch with the two of them, which he was the most critical player for us in Serie B last season and was one of the rising stars in Serie A in the entire time that he was playing healthy. We have Malinowski, who comes into the side and is completely figuring out the way that Gilardino wants to play, and it's taken him up until around now to start making more of his stamp on matches. And so we have kind of this way of thinking about how we're going to go and attack. And we've not had a single match where we've had all those players fit and healthy and fully ready and integrated where they can play together. And maybe we don't always have all of them starting and playing together at the same time. I don't know. But like, we've not even gotten to that yet. So like, there's that part of it that I think is, if you want to be optimistic and hopeful, you look at it that way. I do think that generally speaking, like, I believe that Gilardino is working and strategizing with the squad that he has available rather than a particular, identity, I guess, if you want to say that. I think he is thinking about the best way within the way that his team is set up and the way he can set the team up to be able to get a result. And he's been successful with it. The good news with us being at 14 and 15 right now, at 15 points out of 14 matches, we got results against some of the big teams. And that came from some of his ways of thinking about it. But I mean, you're completely right, though. Like, there's something missing. Every match, I don't know if you're like me, you watch a match like the Empoli match. We've not talked about the Lazio match yet, but we'll probably briefly talk about that too in the Coppa Italia. I worry as these matches go on for a player like Retegui, because I feel like you're thinking, man, if I was only in a team where I got the ball more, really my skills could shine. Is maybe not in the national team as much anymore. Like, all these other things are coming around.
Look at Coda, away from Genoa. Now he's the capocannoniere in Serie B. He's like your top. I mean, but still,
that's Massimo Coda for you, though. That's what he does.
I wanted to actually tie into the Lazio match. So about the strategizing and the thinking behind what happened with the Lazio match. So a lot of people came into the match angry, upset because of the formation. Obviously, it was not necessarily the one that we wanted for, but it was also not only due to the fact of the amount of injuries that we have, and also Frederick being red carded. I mean, he couldn't play because of 2 yellow cards. That's the rule for Coppa Italia. Contrary to Serie A, if you have 5 yellow cards, then you get suspended. In the Coppa Italia, you only have to have 2 to be suspended. So Friendship was suspended, and we know about the other ones. So we have Strootman that was out. We had Jagiello just came back in, and Bani, which was out. We have Ekuban was out. We have, to your point also as well, Goodmanson was out as well. He also said, because we know very well that the club's strategy was not to focus much on the Serie A. Not Serie, but to the Coppa Italia, he did say in a press conference, Gilardino, he did say that he's going to give a chance to other players that did not play as much to get their opportunity to shine and to show their focus and their quality with respects to what they can offer to the team. This was sort of unwritten, a call to say, you either going to show up or, bye-bye maybe in January, something like that. It wasn't obviously written out that way, but that's what it sounded like. So this is the formation that we had. We were forced again on a 3-5-2 based on the players. And obviously there's some turnover, obviously. So we had Leali in goal. Martinez was not even called up. And in the defense, we had right to left, we had Vogliacco again on the right side, Dragusin in the middle, and Maturo to the left. Then in the midfield, so the 5 aspect from right to left, Hefty, Thorsby, Kutlu, Jagiello, and Martin. And up front, which was a 5-2-1-1, was Galdames behind Retegui. The match, essentially, if I may say just in few words, in my opinion, was another mistake, this time early on, not in the second half. This was around the 8th or 9th minute where Lazio scored. Again, another mistake by Hefty. And a little bit of Vogliacco, but again, a little bit of a group mistake, but mostly Hefty's pass was just gave it to them.
It was a hefty mistake. What are you talking about? That was terrible. There's nothing else that you can look. This is the type of thing that just drives you crazy. Like, I know we've been more or less doing this play out of the back type of approach, and you always he's a professional player, but still you think a little bit like he receives the ball where he does, and perhaps there's some sort of pressure or something. But that touch and that pass was fucking horrendous.
We fucked up.
And at that point, because of how advanced Lazio are, it's over. Like it's over. That was 100% on Hefty, and it sucks because it's a really, really silly goal, and we've been talking about him for a long time. Like, I'm a big fan of his. I thought he had done some amazing things when we were up the last go in Serie A, that kind of half season that he played, and I wanted to see him more last year in Serie B, and he had those moments where he was still fighting for the team and all those comments and social media and everything else that came about. So I'm in his corner. I'm rooting for him to succeed, but it really sucks when something like that happens, because there's no other way to say it. It was a terrible mistake.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that determined also my vote I gave to him at the end of the match. The good thing is that it didn't deter him to do bad. He didn't do an excellent match, but he at least recouped a little bit after that, I think. Personally, Hefty, where did Hefty go is my opener. Sorry, let me finish what I was trying to say before I forget it. But essentially, that goal, by our mistake, a very weak Lazio, even though they were 70-80% with their first lines. And then after, we contained it very well with some options, some opportunities that we had ourselves. So essentially, other than the mistake that we made, nothing really else happened other than some chances here and there on both sides, mind you, because it's still Lazio, right? They even brought in Immobile in the second half, but still didn't manage to do anything. He was totally annulled by probably my MVP for the Lazio matches, Dragusin. But I have to condemn 3 players for this match, because I think this was a call to battle for the remainder of the season, and I am, we say in Italian, bocciare, which means I'm relegating. I'm sending them back to, I don't know, Serie B, Serie C, Serie D, wherever you want to put them. Send them away, essentially. Galdames, Thorsby, and Hefty are my worst players of this match.
Oh, wow. You're done with all 3 of them.
Kutlu, on the other hand, I'm actually surprised. He did a decent match. Not an excellent one, but he did quite well. He at least showed that when there is some, when he puts himself to it, he can do something. Jagiello, he was still just back from a very long injury himself as well. It wasn't a great match, but it wasn't also an awful one. Retegui, contrary to the Empoli match, way different. It seemed like the Retegui from before. Obviously, quite unlucky on a lot of instances. And Maturo, a little bit iffy here and there, but he still has that quality. He's still young. He's still opportunities to grow. Dragusin, a beast, and the best in my opinion. Vogliacco, he did very well. Leali barely called, but he's not Martinez in my opinion. And I don't know. Galdames and Thorsby are the 2, and add that with Hefty with that horrible pass that led to their goal.
Yeah, I mean, you're right to say that Hefty recovered in the remaining part of the match, and it's just is one of those things. It's unfortunate because it's a mistake that pretty much cost us the match. I think it's an even enough match overall. The statistics are relatively balanced. I think it was 55% possession to them than to us. Possession 11 shots to 11 shots. They had 5 on target versus our 2. Our big chances were about 3-2. It's a close match in the end. Like maybe you give the nod a little bit more towards the Lazio, but this is one of those matches that if things fall a little bit differently, we could win it. We could have kind of gone on. And to your point, the benefit for us is Coppa Italia later in the season. While it'd be fun, it would be a nice ride to see us continue on and to go to these next stages. It's really, really critical that we consolidate our place in Serie A. And having these matches coming in quick succession, coming after, having only played a few days before, at least we have that behind us, But I don't know. It's tough. I think like at the end for me, I didn't come away with too many negative reviews of the players. If I'm going to be totally honest, I even Torsby and Galdamish, I didn't think that they were like god awful. I actually thought they were all right, but it felt like a little bit of like a womp type of a situation. I think Lazio had a little bit more of, the attacking action. I mean, we had a good chance from Retegui early, but it felt like it was going to be a little bit more of them early on. We make a really bad mistake. Gendouzi of all people scores, which is annoying. And then from then on, it just kind of seemed like that was that. We were kind of done and dusted. Like never really looked like we were going to get back in the match. It didn't really look like they were going to do much more either. And that's kind of what's frustrating about it. It's like just
exactly. So the good thing, as you point, even though my heart said, well, we could have had a chance there, but ultimately, whether or not we're not ready for it. Fine, let's put it behind. We're still in the shadow. People are going to see us as, a newly promoted team. And, Genoa hasn't been anything for the last at least 10, 15 years. Let's be it even this year. Fine, we're back in Serie A. That's the important thing. And let's work on that. So put Coppa Italia behind us. Now let's focus. And if it's true, it is true, but if it's true that we kept certain players at home, Messias and Badel and Martinez, because of focusing on keeping them fresh for the match against Monza, against also a very kudos also to Palladino to what he has been consolidating with Monza. Let's try to do the best. The bare minimum result is a tie, in my opinion, and that's what we should be focusing on at this point. Apparently, if we're recording today on Wednesday, if not today, tomorrow, Goodmanson may be back training, so he might not be in the starting 11, but he could have a chance to have some minutes towards the tail end. But that's important as well. And rumors have it already to date that over 3,000 people are going to Monza to sustain our guys at the stadium in Monza. So I don't know. I guess let's quickly wrap it by talking about predictions and what you think about the next matchup at Monza.
Well, as we talked about, Monza are kind of a surprising outfit this season. I mean, maybe they're not because of their performance last season as well, but it's another match where you look at it and you don't think it's going to be a super easy one. It is away at Monza, of course. Excuse me. We will not have Malinovsky for this match. We know we will continue to, as you mentioned,
due to suspension.
That's correct. Yeah, Mattia Bani unlikely to appear. Strootman early January timeline for return. Caleb Akiban probably won't see him, and Goodmanson, you mentioned he's training, but we don't expect to see him in this match as well. So we're going to be down a couple of players once again. I'm not totally sure how we're going to ultimately line up against this Monza side, but I think that. I would expect to see Messias and maybe Puskas as our guys, kind of our leading men. Maybe we do see Galdamish again. Well, who knows? I don't know. We're down a couple of players for this match, and there's no question about that. I think that despite these last two matches, the encouraging thing is it doesn't seem like this side are completely down and out. We didn't give up. The one thing I'll say is, in both of these matches, I wouldn't say that we just kind of closed the doors and took Empoli for granted when we lost that match. I think we had an unlucky error, and it was our undoing. And against Lazio, I actually thought we mentally recovered pretty well from giving up a goal fairly early on in the competition that I have to think for many players was probably meaningful to them, even if it wasn't maybe the club's number one objective. So all that being said, I think that there's a mindset with this team. I think that there is a job to do at Monza, and I imagine our players are going to be up for it. I feel fairly good about the game, and as good as I guess you can feel as a Genoano right now. It's not one where I'm like, I'm going to cash the ticket and put some money on it and that type of a thing. Like I'm still nervous about what the outcome will be, but if I had to give you a prediction, I think Genoa will win, and I think the margin will be very tight. I think it might be a 1-0 win. There's just something to me, I think, that we have, despite perhaps some of our recent performances, I think we do have enough cohesion within the squad, and what you would hope is that we're able to find a way, via, I don't know where it's going to come from, if it's some enterprising from Badel and Frendrup, if we see a headed goal from Dragusin, if Messias really sparks some magic. I just think about it like we're going into this match. I personally believe it's an evenly matched game. I don't think Monza are going to overpower us with their skill and their team. I think they're a very good team. I don't think it's like, they suck or anything. But, and it gives us a chance to kind of maybe get a big win away from home that I feel like we've been needing for a little bit too. So I feel relatively good about it. And I kind of feel nervous saying that out loud, but it's kind of where I am.
So there's one thing I wanted to add before I go into the predictions as well. One thing I totally forgot about the Lazio match right at the tail end, close to the end of the 90 minutes, there was a foul in the box from Pellegrini with Fini. Now, you might say no. A lot of people call it, shoulder to shoulder. I've seen some commentary and some slow motion commentaries also from refs and so on. Even though it was not a close, clear cut and so on, it should have been called as a penalty. They didn't go and check it at VAR and so on, but nevertheless. Anyways, just wanted to put that small thing there. I'm not trying to use that to our advantage to say that's why we lost and so on. No, we should have done better, but definitely that's something else that, conspiracy theorists say.
Yeah,
go to roll.
Job this again. I mean, look, I understand it's not like you couldn't give it. Like you could give that a penalty, but for me, it's not something that says, "Oh my God, we were just completely like." It's not the Milan call at all. Like,
no, absolutely.
So I mean, the good thing is, I guess we didn't talk about that either. But Seydou Fini, you wonder, does he get a starting chance? I don't think he will. I think he'll be on as a substitute in this match, but he's kind of looked a little lively in his first few appearances for us. Young attacker. He's another player, as you mentioned before. He's probably not really a not striker, more of a winger, and that's, I think, fits to the general problem that we have. I will die on this hill. We came into Serie A knowing that we couldn't completely overhaul the side, so we don't have a side that is built exactly probably how we want to build it, and that's just a reality. We don't have money to do that. And so I think that's a lot of the reason why we don't have this amazing interplay and all this other stuff that's going on. But I think that there's a chance for us to get a result here, and hopefully we get an important 3 points away at Monza.
So how do I see this match? I kind of go in sync with you. I perhaps am going to be a little bit more conservative. With respects to the lineup, I don't think there's going to be... Obviously, you pointed out essentially the rightfully so the issues. So Goodmanson, I don't think he's going to be playing at the very least. He's going to have some minutes at the end. Obviously, we know Malinowski is not going to be there. So Strootman, we already know that he's out for at least till January, as you mentioned as well. So who is going to be playing essentially? So I don't know. We definitely we're going to see Retegi from the starting 11. I'm going to put for sure on that one. Who is going to be with him or not? That's the question. Are we going to see the same as we saw against Empoli with Messias as well? Or was it with Lazio? I can't remember now. No, sorry, with Empoli, of course. But I don't know. Or is he going to come in the second half where maybe bring some freshness on the pitch and so on? Ultimately, that I'm going to leave that to Gilardino to understand what he wants to see and how he foresees that match. Obviously, it's understood quite clearly by the club that it's a very important match, especially with the matches coming after that. And at the back we're still without Bani, so that's still trouble. It's still a little bit troublesome. But at the same time, we have some good rotation. I think we're gonna see Kutlu, because I think he has gained a spot based on the performance that we saw that he had against Lazio. So to what I was saying before, like I agree with you that we have the opportunity to win this match. I don't think we are there yet because of if we have Goodmanson coming in, and I'm not saying because of him, but also the mentality that he's coming in, and even though he might be in a good or in a bad match or a game or whatnot, I think that might determine also the traction and that will determine whether we are going to win or if we're going to tie. I am not going to accept a loss based on the fact that we have that quality, even though we do have to be very extremely careful for Monza. It should never be a side to be underestimated, as you said as well. They are sitting quite high in the ranks of this first part of the season, and that should not be taken lightly, with very high quality players as well. And I do not foresee them to be dropping too much in points going forwards anyways. So I'm thinking it's going to be a tie, but definitely with an edge towards a win. Wrap it up. One more, exactly, fingers crossed. So last thing I wanted to say, Primavera had also a round of 16 match against Fiorentina for the Coppa Italia Primavera. Unfortunately, it ended 1-0. I didn't have a chance really to watch it, but unfortunately also from the Primavera side, we don't have that opener to the Coppa Italia. But nevertheless, our Grifoncini are still very strong, and it's quite important to follow them as well and support them all the way. So, having said that, I was hoping to have this episode a little bit shorter, but there was so much that we skipped, sort of like the pre-match. There was not enough time. I forgot to mention that to do a preview of the Lazio match, but we're here right now. And so we had a little bit really to converse a little bit about. Anyways, thank you. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Drop us a like. Drop us comments. Reach out to us for any questions. You're more than welcome if you want to participate in our chat, in the WhatsApp chat that we call it We Are Genoa, which is growing every day. And never forget, always and forever,
Forza Genoa.
You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genoani Si Resta. Thank you for listening, and see you next week.